It's a tragedy for Britain, a tragedy for the British people, and in particular a tragedy for towns like Southall. The reason for this is in the future, it was hoped that these people would integrate with the British, but there's no hope of that at all. And this can only result in the future that ghettos will set up all over the country.
Well, the simple fact of the matter is that we do not have sufficient houses, jobs and schools for our own people, let alone immigrants, be they black, brown, yellow or green. It simply boils down to a question of numbers.
Well, of course, there are far too many immigrants in this country. When will the public wake up to the fact that you cannot put a quart into a pint bottle?
About 12 or so years ago, there was very, very few people in Southall who were prejudiced. We did everything we possibly could to make these people welcome and help them when they first came here. But as there's been more and more come into the town, we've said to the authorities, please, no more. We're full up. Still they keep coming in by the hundreds. Today, there's very few people in Southall who are not prejudiced. And unless something's done about this quick, that prejudice is going to be sheer bloody hatred.
This is a film about race. That does not mean that this is a film about hatred, for the word discrimination does not mean that. Since the war, the people of this land have seen it change almost out of recognition. One of the biggest changes has been the massive inflow of hundreds of thousands of coloured immigrants. With them, they have brought new and widely incompatible cultures, social customs and habits. Sometimes, prompted by particular circumstances, large numbers of them have arrived at once. Strangely enough, no one, not even the government, either knows or is prepared to admit the precise number of immigrants who are here, or how fast their numbers are growing. There would seem to be about 2.5 million immigrants currently in the country, and one prediction for the year 2000 suggests that 1 in 18 of us will be a coloured immigrant. Now, if the dispersal were as thorough as this, perhaps things wouldn't look so dismal, but even now it is not thorough at all. The people of the city of Nottingham know that. Their city map shows large villages of coloured people, solid areas where discrimination is mutual through total geographical segregation. Now protected by laws under which it seems the immigrant may not win but can't lose, this alien population thrives and prospers, and all this to the bewilderment of those whose sons and daughters fought and died for a land they thought their own. In their words then, and from their hometowns, this is a little of the story of those whose voice is usually silent. Southall is part of the London borough of Ealing. The area has a large immigrant population. So large they bus children to other parts of the borough to preserve racial balance in the schools. So large that on a sunny day it's difficult to remember just where you are.
If we are obliged to have these immigrants, why can't they be dispersed to other areas, especially to the areas of these MPs and the people that welcome them to this country?
Well, as a small shopkeeper, the shops inspector tells me I'm breaking the law because I don't have a notice up as to my early closing day. And when we asked him, what about these Indian shops? They're breaking the law all the time. He publicly stated, I know these people are breaking the law, but I'm afraid to take action against them in case I'm accused of racial prejudice.
My grandparents were married here in 1867, and 6 generations of my family have lived here, but now I'm being driven out. The local cemetery, where all my people are buried, all my family, was used for gambling and drinking, and a lot of even the tombstones have been damaged. The one next to my mother's was. and there's gambling in the manor house grounds and in the park, something which was never allowed in Southall years ago.
Immigration, there are too many immigrants in Southall, and the government have taken very little action in easing the situation or directing that immigrants should be dispersed from this area. And the housing problem, of course, is terrific.
My mother died a couple of years ago. I wouldn't have her buried in Southall because I hate the idea of an Indian temple being built over her grave in years to come.
And that's not misguided emotion, for Southall already has a large and flourishing Asian religious community with its own temples. So what of the future for the whites who are left?
Have we got?
Only hope is to be able to get away from Southall, away from it all. Like everybody else, all our friends have gone. There's nothing left for English people in this town anymore. I would like to say this. My wife and I used to like to go out weekends down to the local, have a couple of drinks, meet friends in there. We can't go into the locals anymore. They're full up with noisy foreigners, and we don't like it.
We
haven't got a place left where we, the English people, can go and enjoy ourselves in this town.
After going through 2 world wars, we should at least have the dignity of being allowed to live with our own kind.
Smethwick, just outside Birmingham. One of those places that look like the cornerstone of the Industrial Revolution. Here, in his home grounds, meet local businessman John Watt.
About 10 years ago, I came into Smethwick to open this cutting tool business. And during this time, I've seen a great change take place in the population of this area. Because when we first came here, there were almost no coloured immigrants in the area. But it was a prosperous white working class area, and that unskilled and semi-skilled jobs were available. West Indians started to move in to take these jobs, and then we had the classic pattern that they have in the United States, where one coloured family moves into a street, the whites start to move out, more coloured immigrants come in to take their place, and over a period of the past 10 years, we've seen many of the streets around this area become predominantly black. But as these areas do become black, we get a situation where in more recent years, Asians have also moved in with the West Indians, and these Asians have opened shops, which in turn have taken trade away from the white-owned shops, which has resulted in many white-owned businesses closing down, and the place has either been taken with Asian traders of various sorts, or as today in Handsworth Soho Road, you see many of these shops standing empty. The snag is with these Asian traders, they don't make any genuine contributions to the community as a whole, because the money that they earn from these businesses, in many cases, is transmitted back to India and Pakistan and the like. This, of course, is bad from the country as a whole, since it upsets the balance of payments. And I understand that these remittances at the moment are running at the rate of about £40 million a year. Of course, these coloured people coming into the area are creating black ghettos, and this is affecting the whole of the urban area, including education and social services. For example, in this area today, it is difficult for a white woman to get a bed in a maternity hospital because these beds are now taken up by coloured women. And I think this is particularly immoral because it is the white community at large that have paid for these beds over the years by taxation, and particularly by their national health contributions. And when their wives now want the services of the maternity hospital, they find it is denied to them, and yet at the same time being given to coloured women who may only have just arrived in this country. The official reason given for this is that white women live in far better conditions than the coloured women, so that the white women can stay at home to have their children in sanitary conditions, where the coloured women cannot apparently stay at home to have their children in insanitary conditions. The people of this country have got to make up its mind what sort of a country Britain is going to be in 100 years' time. If we allow the immigration to take place on the scale that is taking place today, coupled with the birth rate of colours that's rapidly outstripping that of white, then we're going to have a black state. The history of this country for the past 1,000 years has been one of repelling or preventing invasions of one sort and another. And yet here we have a situation where an unarmed invasion is taking place before our very eyes. And it's not outside the bounds of possibility that future generations will look back on the British of today like we look back on the ancient Egyptians.
Bradford, the great wool town of the north. But it's a long time since the white rose flowered in these streets. It takes a lot to make Yorkshiremen march. In October 1972, they did.
Manchester to support this meeting because we want our country to be not have so many immigrants with no room, with no job, and our poor lads are fighting in Ireland while our own country's being invaded.
I mean, the situation we've got now is that you can't find jobs, accommodation in your own town. I don't come from Bradford. I'm here today to support the Bradford people because they've been left out. They don't get a say in what's going on. They're pushed up here, people are, the coloured people. They're put into an overcrowded situation and it's just leaving chaos behind. And we're going to try and salvage something from that.
I mean, we can't really accommodate them with jobs and houses when we need them ourselves. Help them by all means, you know, after we've helped ourselves, but...
And a lot of the factories around here, they're employing approximately 12 black to 1 white. What's the problem? I'm a Scotsman. I'm living in London. I've come all the way from London, but I'm a Britisher. And I am here, and I feel there is a great problem here in Bradford. I'm not a politician. I'm a working class man. I'm a member of the British public. I spent 11 and a half years in the British forces. I spent it in the Airborne and the SAS, and I'm here now marching for these people. Because to me, we have been sold out all the way along the line by Heath, Wilson and everybody else. And I am not a politician, and I don't want to be interested in politics. Just a member of British politics. British public. That's all.
There's too many people in the country. Yet they keep letting these immigrants in, knowing very well that the mass majority of the British people are against this immigration. We've got enough in Bradford, let's keep them out. We've got enough here. We've got enough over here. We've already got unemployment around this area, and we ought to see them kept out, the rest of them. We can stand so much. They've brought too many over, and we are going to stand for it. We're going to fight against it.
A British working man. That's how I describe myself. A British working man, no less, and that's all. I'm just fed up and tired of being pushed from pillar to post. The British people can't get away in where the immigrants can. They get everything laid on a plate for them, they get money laid out for them just when they want it, and we get nothing. Sweet and simple nothing. All I want is the best for my children and my family and my people. That's all I want. just the best for my people and my country.
Notting Hill Gate and North Kensington in the heart of London, areas of trendy attraction, and yet ghettos in embryo. This is Geoffrey Baber, local councillor.
The interesting thing about Notting Hill Gate, and where it differs so much from the other main immigrant areas, is that it doesn't have the real problems that other community areas such as Smethwick or Brixton have. Thanks to the borough's work, there's no more real housing problems or educational problems in Notting Hill Gate. However, Notting Hill Gate has for a long time been the real political focal centre for immigrant troubles and reaction. And this is largely centred around a restaurant in All Saints Road called the Mangrove. Now, the Mangrove restaurant has been seen by many immigrants as a focal point for black influence, black culture, and unfortunately black power. The owner has tried to run it in a reasonable manner, but he is a weak man who's been able to be influenced by the anarchists in the Notting Hill Gate area, some of whom are white and a minority of whom are black.
It seems these people exploited the inability of the owner of the Mangrove restaurant to keep in with the requirements of the borough and the police about hygiene and the normal management of a restaurant. And they've seen every attempt by the police to keep the running of the restaurant within the law as an attack on black people, or to use a common phrase, police harassment. As a consequence, following a police raid on the Mangrove to investigate a licensing problem, the anarchists in the area organised a march to take place as a protest about this alleged police harassment. Thousands of people met outside the restaurant and marched through the area. The police asked the organisers of the march to let them know its route. The organisers refused. The march was deliberately led into a small street which contained a number of building skips full of broken bricks. Needless to say, at the first opportunity, the marchers threw the bricks at the police, and full-scale riot erupted. What is interesting about these photographs is that most of the marchers are white. In Councillor Baber's opinion, the area is a prime example of exploitation of a minority group by those whose intent is not to help them, but to create total anarchy.
Over the last few years, millions of pounds have been spent by the borough in the Notting Hill Gate area in order to bring up the housing standards to an acceptable level. This, as you can see, has now almost been completed. If the immigrant allows himself to continue to be exploited, it foretells ill of the future.
So what then is the answer? Does anybody know? Enoch Powell. That nation will be ill-counselled which allows its statesmen to predict only what it is pleasant to hear. Former Home Secretary Reginald Maudling. How can we reconcile repatriation with our desire to make one single community in this country? Sir Robert Mark. Give me a good batch of young immigrants as police cadets, and I can promise you a real change in the atmosphere very quickly. And this is Mark Bonham Carter. When he was chairman of the Race Relations Board, he said, "It's only a short-term problem." There may just be time, though it would seem that we are already at the 59th minute of the 11th hour. To discriminate does not mean to hate. It means to distinguish or to choose. Is there a choice left? And if there is, what then is yours?